we're talking with our own today. Alan Smith, you're in your lab and you just got back from the meeting down in Assisi, the hydrogen meeting that Bill Colas, Claudio Pace, and Asiya Chilani also put together. I heard the conference was tremendous, and we want to hear about that. You were there to talk about the Frank Gordon experiment that you're reproducing, and there's a couple other people reproducing this experiment as well. As you're in the lab, can you talk about this Frank Gordon LEC experiment? What's so important about this? Why are so many people excited about reproducing this experiment?
Well, first of all, I should point out, I wasn't the only person talking about the Frank Gordon experiment. John Paul Barbarian also did a presentation on the same thing because he's been working on it too. And Barbarian said, it works. And he had more time than me before the meeting. So he was able to do a very significant test, actually, which was to get a working system and then put it under vacuum. And it stopped working. And he let the hydrogen back in and it started working again, which kind of proves the hypothesis that somehow the system is creating ionized gas, charged gas molecules in the space between the two electrodes. You know, you have two electrodes, a bit like this, yeah? That there's a gap, an insulated gap. They don't touch. They are completely separate electrically, but there's a voltage between them, just like the voltage you get on a battery. And the only good hypothesis we have, though it's not proven, is that when the plates are prepared, right, the working electrode is prepared, it's plated with iron, or you could use palladium, but iron works very well. And hydrogen is loaded into the plating at the same moment. Yeah, hydrogen goes to the cathode, the iron goes to the cathode, and so you end up with a kind of peanut butter sandwich. You have iron and hydrogen really pushed tight together. And of course, as Ed Storms has theorized, when you get hydrogen or deuterium loaded into these tiny gaps, it achieves intense pressure. And it may well be that the Coulomb barrier, which may or may not exist, but never mind, what we call the Coulomb barrier is broken. So there is some fusion of some kind, but there's no radiation that we can measure. I've tried with quite sophisticated equipment to look for particle emissions. I haven't managed to find any. But many years ago, back in 1991, Srinivasan and Rube that published a paper where they were doing something similar, and they were using dental X-ray film. I may have some here. Well, I do have some here. Never mind, I can't see the box for the moment. But they were using dental X-ray films, and the films were becoming fogged when they were in close contact with a co-deposited hydrogen and metal surface. So maybe that's what's happening here. We've got some very, very low energy X-rays, beta rays, alpha, probably alphas, one would suspect alphas, but very low energy, which are just putting an electric charge on the gas molecules in the gap between the plates. And the electric charges, being what they are in ionized gases, they sort themselves out, and the negative charge will go one way and the positive charge will go another. There's a few different mechanisms by which this can happen, but the original work goes right back to J.J. Thomson in about 1898 to 1906. He did a lot of work, and his book on two books he published on the conduction of electricity through gases and on the discharge of electricity through gases, both talk about this phenomenon which he observed and studied.
Mm-hmm. So this
Yes,
is an experiment that's using kind of the LENR environment, the cold fusion environment, and hydrogen gas, and generating voltages and electrical current directly. What
that's
kind of
right.
voltages are we, and current are we talking about at this time?
At the moment, we've only built very small systems. I mean, my systems are bigger than in terms of surface area, because you know when you think about batteries. By the way, let me just backtrack a bit.
Mhm.
You talk about batteries have plates in. Well, here's a plate, yeah, and as you see, this one is about twice the size of a playing card, right? Frank's. So that has a a reasonable surface area. Frank has been using much smaller systems, but a typical voltage might be anything between 200 and 400 millivolts, so
Mhm,
less than half a volt, right?
mhm,
And the currents are very small,
mhm,
but they should not be there at all.
mhm.
And when we
Why are
speak
they
about
there?
time, is it for how long is the time?
The time span is in hydrogen is some months. Yeah, the current persists for some months, but we
Wow.
have not really explored all the different parameters of the experiment. Frank has some ideas he's working on, and now we're trying to engage some other people in replicating. Uh, Very likely that there's some people in Sweden who may do this. I mean, they're talking about it. I think I could possibly coax Jacques Rouer to have a go.
Mhm,
And we're looking around for other people to do more replications, because there is obviously a lot of work to be done to take this from the this is interesting to this is useful stage.
mhm,
Yeah,
mhm,
maybe that's not possible. Maybe it will always just remain as an interesting phenomenon. It's too early to tell, but the obvious things
mhm,
to do are to use bigger plates, to use more plates, to build a bigger battery. Yeah,
mhm.
because what it basically is a nuclear battery. But to make a nuclear battery like this, you need a whole teaspoonful of polonium or something to
Mm,
produce the kind of outputs that we're seeing. And here, this is made with inexpensive materials. It's very simple to construct, and although there is an unknown about the radiation, which may give some college health and safety committees pause for thought, right? Basically, it will be a wonderful first year university experiment. Yeah,
hmm.
And
for
we see a
students.
lot of people on the LENR forum that are trying to replicate it. The last months, 2 months, have been quite interesting. If we check on the LENR forum.
That's right.
Mhm,
That's right. Yeah.
mhm,
And Stevenson,
Mhm.
our forum member, he's done some wonderful work. I mean, he's very expert experimenter, and I'm very impressed with what he's discovered. And I have managed to actually do some of the same experiments that he has done, and I've got exactly the same result. Yeah. So
Are all the people who are reproducing this, are they generating the same relative amounts of voltage and current?
it looks like it from a simple system with just
Mhm,
just two electrodes. Yeah. And nobody, as far as I know, has built a system with multiple electrodes yet. This is, although Frank and Harper Whitehouse, his colleague, have been working on this for a long time. That I don't think they've actually not upped the engineering very much. They've been mainly trying to understand the effect, to because it's such a puzzle. What the hell
mhm,
is going on?
This is
mhm.
interesting.
I think I
Alan,
put in
in
my
the
lecture
history,
notes,
Alan, in the
something's
history,
going
have
on
you
here, but you
seen
don't know
something,
what it is, do you, Mr. Jones?
Alan,
It's a
in the
Bob Dylan
history,
moment.
have you seen
Sorry,
something
David?
in the history of the field? Have you seen something similar results?
No, not at all, not at all. And I've looked, yeah. It's not photoelectric effect because there's no light in the system. In the ones that here the light can shine on the plates that I'm using, but in the ones that Stevenson and Frank Gordon has created in their systems, they're completely sealed. There's
Mhm.
no light. There's no possibility. So it's not photoelectric. It's not galvanic, because we are pretty sure that there is no contact between systems, yeah, between the plates. To have a galvanic effect, really, you need two different metals, yeah, like so. You know, you have steel, you have aluminium. There, you might get a galvanic effect, but we ensure that nothing touches. You know, there is no contact, and in fact, if you do put the plates, let the plates touch, you lose the current immediately with this system. It just vanishes, yeah. It's a short circuit, in other words. It's like pushing two plates of a battery together.
Do we know how many have been replicated so far? Is it 2 or 4 or 6 people? Do you know how
Well, at the as far as I know, there is a replicator who works at Los Alamos, who's done it in his spare time. There's Frankenharper, there's Bivarian, there's Stevenson, there's me, and there is possibly one other. So we think 7 at the moment, and before very long, it's going to be 10. Yeah,
this is great news.
Yeah, yes, this is good news. Yeah, and it's very encouraging that it's so reliable. I mean, if you think it's the right moment, then I could show you something about the work and how it's.
Yes, yeah, let's see it.
Fine.
Perfect.
Right. Well, there's going to be a little bit of noise because I'm going to turn the power supply back on. And I'm going to attempt to switch cameras now. It should be possible. It's somewhere here. No, not like that. Here we go.
Perfect, Alan. We see. Perfect.
Right. So this is, I know it's a big one. This is a very conventional power supply, and at the moment, I have a plating tank here, which is full of this evil brown soup, yeah, which is iron sulfate and monosodium citrate and ammonia and so on, which is the plating mixture. And this here, I can take it out now. I'll turn the plating current off because it's noisy. But this big and very horrible looking chunk of iron, right? It's a big piece of heavy steel plate. That's the anode. So iron is being transferred from there onto the other part of the experiment, which is this is the MacGuffin. This is the bit we really want. Wow, look at that. It's pretty black, but this is plated with iron, and I think it has a surface coating of magnetite. Now, I think it's magnetite. So, technical error there. I just want to watch this a bit. Some of this magnetite is loose. It's just sludgy stuff. I did hope that this might fit into that beaker. I should have picked a bigger beaker. I never checked. You notice, by the way, I'm using my finger to clean this up. That's because all this stuff is harmless. Yeah.
Electrochemistry is very messy.
You're not kidding. Yeah. Now, I don't know if you can see now the black sludge is gone. That's the iron plate. That's the bit we really want. So there we are. I'll hold it up to the camera. Hopefully you can see it's looking a bit silvery now. This is a piece of brass, by the way. It's a piece of brass sheet. Nothing special about it. It's just ordinary commercial brass plate. And I can disconnect this from the... So now the only problem I have is it's wet. Yeah. Let's dry it as carefully as I can. More magnetite. Look, see how black it is? Look.
Yes.
There. I've noticed that before with doing electrochemistry experiments with iron, by the way, that you make a lot of magnetite, and under some conditions, when you look at it, it's nano magnetite, which is commercially very, very interesting. And I don't see much in the literature, by the way, that anybody makes nano magnetite or even any kind of magnetite this way, because you see, you could make commercially valuable magnetite, which is used for all sorts of things, water treatment and in lots of chemical processes. You could make it from scrap metal, but nobody by using electrochemistry. But as far as I know, nobody does. Yeah. So there we are. That's
so here we have a business idea also.
There we are. So that's it. This is the B side, and you can see that's kind of coppery. It's changed color where it's been in the electrolyte because it looks more coppery than brassy. That's because the electrolyte has stolen the zinc from it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's eaten the zinc out of the brass. Is an alloy of copper and zinc, and the electrolyte stolen some of the zinc off the surface. But here we got the iron plate, and it's reasonably dry. I'd like to put this in the oven for a few minutes. It doesn't make any difference to the experiment, by the way, but as you say, you can see what's going on here, can't you? Yeah, that's it. I'll move the camera a little bit, which may help. Yeah, now you've got all the bench. So there's that one. I've got this little meter here, and I'm gonna put this one at the bottom, and I'm going to find some spacers. I've got some here. These are microscope cover slips, which are glass. Yeah. So consequently, you'll have to take my word for it. They really are there. They're just 0.1 of a millimeter thick. So very, very thin. 1/250th of an inch thick. But they are insulating because they're glass. So I'm going to put these on the surface here to ensure that there is no physical contact between the plated iron and the other electrode, which is going to be, I think that'll do, one on each corner, one in the middle. And that one is not one, but two. Okay. Now, I have also a little wet, the aluminium electrode here. So it just got splashed. I'm going to put that on top. There. Are you still with me? Yes, you are. Very hard to actually see that thing. And on top of that, I'm going to put these are lead weights. Yeah.
Yes.
They're from my radiation shield wall. They're not particularly difficult, necessary for the experiment. It's just that they are a very convenient way to keep everything still. Right. Now, I've got this little meter here, which is much more convenient for this. And it will read millivolts. It's just sorting itself out. Give it a moment. So it's reading when it settles down. About 20 between it's jumping around a bit. There's probably stray electrical signals in the lab, but it's reading 15 or 20 millivolts. Now, if I put it onto this, one side's already connected to the aluminium. I'll put this one on the brass. Well, like all good experiments, it's not behaving. It's showing me 0 millivolts at the moment. Something wrong somewhere. I think I've got a short circuit somewhere. This is the experimenter's life, you know. Always looking for things you can't find.
It seems so simple when you do it, but it really takes a lot of skill to put all that together.
Well, maybe. Ruby, I've been doing this since I had long trousers. That's a long time ago. Right. Okay. Well, I've upped the gap a little bit. Maybe that's what we needed. Right. Reconnect it. When I find the other end of this wire, that's it. Come on. It's good working on the farm here, by the way, especially on a Saturday. You should be quiet. No, it's still not working. Damn it.
Trial and error.
Yes.
Well, as this is what the reward I get for saying that this experiment is worryingly reliable.
Yeah. Well, you're looking for the voltage, but don't we need some some hydrogen gas that will be ionized between these plates?
Right. Now I've managed to get, by holding them apart a little bit, about 180 millivolts out of this. Right. So yeah, this system will work. There's something I haven't noticed going on here. And it's always the same when you attempt to do experiments live, you know, they're very well. I just got 250 millivolts, 300 millivolts, but I'm only holding them apart. Yeah. Yes.
Oh.
To get anything working for a long period, you definitely would need hydrogen, because iron is so readily oxidized. Yeah. So, but that seems to be the only reason. I mean, it does improve the durability. I'm going to switch cameras again. Hang on. It does improve the durability of the experiment, that's for sure. But it's not actually key. It's not actually required to run the experiment. Matt Lilly and I have had this working in air. And in fact, it's only a few days ago that I got the other half of the equipment working, which is the vacuum chamber and the hydrogen generator, so that we can run it in hydrogen. But you see, many gases, as Thomson discovered back in the 1890s, you can ionize many gases. And in fact, he conducted experiments where he was using alcohol vapor, carbon dioxide, argon, I think, air, hydrogen, and so on. Yeah. But the beauty of using hydrogen is that it stops probably or slows down the diffusion of hydrogen from within the plate. Yeah. So the hydrogen stays in there longer. But the other key feature is the iron doesn't go rusty in a hydrogen atmosphere. So really it's practical chemistry, but it's not necessary initially, or when you're just doing quick experiments, to do it. It may be that it's possible, and I've been thinking about this, but haven't yet had a chance to do it, to seal the hydrogen into the plate, right? For example, cadmium metal is used to plate the inside of steel hydrogen pressure storage vessels for storing gas, because cadmium is impermeable to hydrogen. And it may be that you could actually do this, make a plate like this, and then put it back in a different plating bath and plate it with cadmium, right? And seal the hydrogen in there, in which case cadmium, by the way, is a very good corrosion inhibitor for steel. So maybe you could stop it going rusty and stop any requirement to run it in hydrogen, and it would just run in air. But I don't know yet. But that's
Alan,
just an idea.
I have a question for you. Now we have a receipt from Frank Gordon. He showed a recipe how to do this, quite cheap. And what do we want to say to the community, Alan? Do you have some idea? What do we want to see in the upcoming 6 months, 12 months?
Well,
or laboratories?
Although my demonstration today has not been very successful, right? This is the first time it's ever failed, by the way. It's the first time it's never behaved itself, but not to worry. I think that we really need as many people as possible to replicate this. If this became a meme on the internet, then suddenly it becomes undeniable. Frank is very actually open, very encouraging in terms of, you know, he's not in the least bit precious about this. He's got his patents, a couple secured. There are a couple of similar patents which are known as the Enterman Patents, which Charlie Enterman, being the owner of a big bakery chain in America, who was a big fan of Coldfusion, or maybe still is, a supporter of Coldfusion. And he, somebody else who was working alongside, I believe, don't quote me on that, but I believe they were working in the same lab as Frank and Harper, also patented something somewhat similar, not exactly the same, somewhat similar. So there is prior art, as they call it in the patent business. You know, the inventors of the technology are well known, but Frank realizes that if this is as good as he hopes, as good as he suspects it might be, then all bets are off. Yeah, it'll be a free-for-all. When we talk about, you know, I talk about this as interesting, but not yet useful. But you could imagine the impact that even a low-power system would have if it was reliable, if it was cheap, and if it lasted for a long, long time, even without charging, and was easy to recycle, by the way. All this stuff is very recyclable. You know, there are no toxins, there are no impossible materials in there. Everything you could buy in Home Depot to do the experiment. Yeah, everything is available, and everything is recyclable as well. So it's pretty green as systems go. It's pretty green. There are nothing exotic about any of it. Now, just imagine if for a few dollars, because really there's no reason why a system should cost more than a few dollars, that would power a mobile phone or maybe a few LEDs. You could imagine that you could have a phone in your pocket that wouldn't need, that maybe once a year you'd buy another lattice energy converter and put it in instead of a battery. Your phone would never need charging. And maybe we've now got unlimited minutes, so I'll carry on. It may be that you could replace 1 billion kerosene lanterns in the world. Somebody said to me there are 1 billion people who light their homes for kerosene, when they can afford it. If you imagine, we got rid of 1 billion kerosene lanterns in favor of a few LEDs for everybody. What a difference it would make. People wouldn't need to find the money all the time to buy the kerosene. You know, the kids could do their homework after school without worrying about what it costs. There would be less smoke and pollution and less CO2 and less of everything. And that's what we need, less of everything. Yeah.
But is the time now to start replicate, or do you think about the security? You told us that we don't see any radiation. Do you think it's the time to start replicating, or should they wait for something?
We haven't we have not been able to detect any radiation worth the mention. Maybe they found some when they were looking at Los Alamos, probably with millions of dollars worth of equipment, by the way. But even that was inconclusive. Yeah. So it's not proven. It's not disproven. That's an unknown. But there is certainly no penetrating radiation of any kind. And as you know, you can make X-rays by unrolling a roll of Scotch tape. Yeah. Maybe it's no more than that. Maybe it's even less. Yeah.
Alan, I got a question, and I don't know if you can answer this, but I know Fabrice David spoke at the recent meeting hosted by Bill Collis and Claudio Pace, and he's been working in the LENR direct energy, electrical power space for a while. Do you know anything about his work, and does it relate to what the LEC experiment is?
Very similar in that. By the way, apologies, I should have mentioned that Fabrice spoke about this at the meeting. It slipped my mind for the moment, because he did talk about what I described a little while ago, the Enterman Patents, the similar system. But Fabrice, as you know, has been working on something called the fusion diode system, right? Which is more like a semiconductor. I mean, you know, with semiconductors, you have what they call the band gap, yeah? And you encourage electrons to jump across the band gap, which is in a semiconductor is solid. It's a solid material, but it has holes in it, which the electrons can go through. Well, there is a similarity that you might say that this was a bit like a semiconductor, but the band gap is a gas, not a solid. So yes, there are similarities, and I'm a big admirer of Fabrice and his work. He's a very creative experimenter, you know, and he does marvelously elegant experiments with very little material, very often anyway. Yeah, he's done some terrific stuff. Yeah, and yes, there is a relationship. These so often you find, as you dig into scientific phenomena, interesting and unusual phenomena that appear to be totally unrelated, the more you dig into them, the more you find the links between them. And there is certainly a very strong link between the fusion diode that Fabrice David came up with and developed along with his friend in Scotland, and the work of Frank and Harper Whitehouse and the Enterman Patents too. Yeah, they're all related. So not only is this, generally speaking, worryingly reliable, if not today, then it's also the case that there are similar but not identical systems which are producing similar results. Yeah, yeah. So it does tend to suggest to me that we have a number of ways which are nevertheless producing a similar phenomenon. Yeah. And if this is a new way of making electricity, to me, it seems to be quite revolutionary, right? Because 200 years ago, and how long it may take to develop, I don't know, but 200 years ago, roughly speaking, Becquerel came up with the photoelectric effect, the same effect that works. It was 150 years before somebody built a practical working photocell, which was a very, very long development curve. I'm not suggesting that the development curve for this would be as long, but we have Volta and the battery. We have Becquerel and the photoelectric effect. We have Peltier and co. and thermoelectricity. This is something else. It's something different. It's another new phenomenon which we don't understand. And it's
so all the labs
probably
out there, go check this out.
Yes,
we need to know, what is this?
To my mind, it's very important. Yeah, very important indeed. And I think Frank and his colleagues and Harper and the people who did the Enterman work and Fabrice, they have done some wonderful work, some fundamental work on something that we don't understand. And
Well,
everything is open source. So if you go to
pretty
LENR
much,
forum,
Frank is happy to open source at this level. Frank is happy to open source. I'm sure that in his lab, Harper and he are actually working on, you know, boosting the output, on doing various things. Frank has suggested to me that they've got ideas about improving the output and various ways in which it might be done. And I don't know what they are, but he does. And I'm sure he will let us know. He's very appreciative, by the way, of the support that he's had from the forum in general. And he thinks it's great that we've picked it up to run with it, because he wants as many people to do this as possible. Yeah. We could create a meme, Ruby. It could be a meme. Yeah.
well, we should wrap this up right now, and let's mention that we're getting Frank Gordon, Harper Whitehouse. We're going to have a nice round table with some of the replicators, and Frank and Harper are going to tell us about what they're doing next and where their research is now. So I'm looking forward to that and seeing what has developed in the last couple of months, because it does seem very quickly moving.
It does.
So thank you so much, Alan, for showing us this experiment, and we'll see you next time. David,
Yes.
LENRforum.com. We've got a thread for the Frank Gordon experiments.
And we will post the links down here. So check this out. This is the most interesting thing this year in the field.
It certainly is. It may be the most interesting thing this century, but we don't
think so.
Bye-bye, everyone.
All right. See you next Cold Talk.
See you
Ciao,
then.
ciao.
Bye-bye. Bye.